Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin daf Pei Hey. We're going to begin on Pei Hey Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Says the Mastisa, Hariyat Muteris L'chol Adam. So a person seemingly gets everything right, and he says that you are free to marry whomever you want. But then he adds the following. He says, El la'aba u'lavich. You cannot marry my father or your father, l'achich, my brother or your brother, l'eved kachavim, a slave or a non-Jew, or all these different people in which the kedushin wouldn't be chal anyway, so kosher. In this situation, the din is that it's fine, because as Rashi explains, lav shiruhu, he's not leaving anything out. He's not forbidding her from anything that she would have been forbidden even if he didn't make this statement. He's not really saying much. The Molav Isser Ishis Nami will tafsibo Kedushin. So Kedushin would be typhus anyway. However, let's say he says, Hari Muteris Achol Adam, you're allowed to marry everyone, El Almano Kohen Gadol. If you're a widow, you cannot marry Kohen Gadol. A Grusha, if you're divorced, of a Chalutza, you are going to be divorced. Maybe look Kohen Hedjit or Mamzeres in the city of Israel by Shom Mamzer Lamamzel in Nasin, and the Sinim, as we see in many places, are the Givoinim. So in that situation, V'chol Sheishul of Kedushin, I feel about their apostle. So the reality is, it is a Kedushin. However, it's with an Avera. But since technically she could marry them, so therefore this is considered to be Shi'urahu, and therefore for that reason she will not be divorced. Okay, so going straight to TB24, it says, if you say chutz mikedushi katan, chutz ma'akum, chutz min hanoyladim, chutz mibal yachaisai, ha'im be'elu havi shir beget. So two of them we saw in the Mishnah, right? An akum, or actually not necessarily Baal Chaisai, but definitely Akum, and therefore when it comes to Akum, we'll have a Shiura. That is not considered to be a Shi'ur, and therefore it certainly is a get. The other three we haven't seen yet. Okay, let's see the Gemara. So, says the Gemara, Klala Deresh Lasuye Sha'ar Chayvi Krisos. The general rule of the Resha that tells us that it's not a Kedushin is even if there's a chayvi krisos, that if you marry them, you're going to be chayv kares. Klol the seifa, that in fact it does, that the kedushin would be chal on some level, is liyasui shar chavi lavin, and therefore because of that, if you exclude anything which is a chayvi lav, so then the din is that that is considered to be shi'urahu, and therefore because of that, it would not be a get. And then it says in parentheses, okay. So he asked the following question. Which is one of the questions of TB24. If he mentions that you can marry anyone, but you can't marry a 9-year-old. Now, you can't marry a 9-year-old. A katan cannot do kedushin. Mahu. This kid can't do kedushin anyway, so he's not doing anything, saying anything. He eventually will be fit to marry her, and therefore maybe it's a problem. That we actually learned. Katana miskareshes kedushi avia. We know that a katana can get divorced herself when it comes to the kedushin of the father. Even though the father is one that did the kedushin, which means it's a din deraisa, it's a deraisa kedushin, so how could a katana be makabel the get? It's referring to a situation, Rashi says, mimisa savia, where the father had already died. So, says Rashi, Klomer afil kitchu avil ish hazeh, the havil kedushin gemurin, she can still be makabel. So, my v'habinam yatzav haisa, how does this work? She couldn't have made the kedushin as a katana, only her father did it. And now that the father died, so how could she do gerushin? It must be since she will be a gadol eventually. El asim echel havaya hachanami asel echel havaya. So therefore, this actually answers the question that when it comes to Kedushi Katan, that is problematic. And this is why he says, Kedushi Katan Havishiur. And therefore, if he would say that because they eventually will become a Gadol, just like she eventually will become a Gedola, therefore, it would not be a get. And then the last two, the other questions was, Chutzmin Hanoyladim. What if you say, you can marry anyone except for boys who will be born? Mahu. Okay, you can say they're not alive. What is he talking about? You can maybe say the same svar like by a kid who's a katan. So this person's just not born, but eventually will be born, eventually become a gadol. It says in our Mishnah that if he mentions an Eved of Chachamim, you can say the same thing. Well, if we're dealing with an Ovid Chachamim, you don't have to remain an Ovid Chachamim your whole life. You could convert, and then once you convert, then you'll be able to get married to a Yisrael. So in fact, why don't we mention that? So Hanach Lav Liguri Kaima. We say when it comes to someone who's not Jewish, we don't just assume, yeah, there's a chance that they're gonna that they are going to convert. We assume the status quo. If you leave everything the way things are going, they'll remain an Ovid Chachamim their whole life. Hani with the Eludi Kaimi. However, when it comes to Noyladim, they are going to eventually be born, and they will eventually become adults. So that's a question. Chutz mi bal chaysa mahu. So again, this is the same question as before, as TB 24. How about you cannot marry your sister's husband? So mahu hashdami eloi chazile. You can't marry her because you can't marry this guy because he's married to the sister. The din is you can actually marry sisters if you divorce the sister, but if that woman that you were married to died, then halachically you can now marry her sister. So therefore it is shaykh. Or moli tenisua. Well, eved chachavim nami they can convert. So geras lo shchicha, misa shchicha. It's a little bit of a scary line, but what it means is conversion. It could happen. It may happen. It may not happen. But Misa will happen. So the fact is that this woman may die. A woman will die. Everyone will die. So therefore, maybe that is a shiur. Let's say he says everything except your mizonos. Says Rashi, Shlo tibali biznos. So this is actually a nice way of saying that you should not be boil as nos. Mahu benesuin haloshir. He's not saying you can't marry whoever you want, but he's just saying I don't want you once you were divorced for you to be mazana all over the place. Well, dilma shir babia. That's also considered to be a shir. Says Rashi, because sad ishus krin bay. Because there is an element of ishus when it comes to bia, especially it can be mekadosh and ishus with bia. Armoli tenesua. Well, abu avich. It says to your father, my father, umay ilim nesuin. Maybe it's referring to marrying them. What do you mean? Abu avich, but in nesuin in who can't marry them. El abuznos. He's saying don't be mazano with them. Well, abu avich hu deloy shir. So we're saying maybe only for them that's not an exclusion. Mashma hol acher shir. Why are we mentioning them by his nus? So for them it's not a shir. Mashma everyone else it is. So it's a raya. No dilma b'nesuin. Maybe we're talking about marriage to over v'insiv. You're talking about that you violated and sinned and went to the New York Supreme Court, or you went to some civil ceremony and got married. You wanted to get married. It's nothing. It says Rashi, even though it's not normal to obviously marry father, fine. What if he says, you can marry whoever you want. You can have bia with whoever you want. I'm not going to stop you, but you cannot have bia shelo kedarka. Mahu b'kedarka halo shir, so she can have bia however she wants. As we see in so many places that we make a connection bia kedarka to bia shelo kedarka. So therefore, maybe that is a shir. Chutz mehafaras nidorayich mahu. You can marry whoever you want, but I don't want him to have the rights to be made to remove any of your nedarim. So b'nesuin hoshir. It says regarding a husband, says Rashi, so you're getting involved in matters of husband and wife. Chutz mitrumosech, says Rashi, if you marry Kohen, lo yachilech betruma, you're not to eat truma. Mahu b'nesuin haloshir. Well, Dilma kinyan kasbuk siv, says Rashi, hu yoichelbo. So she has a halachic right to be able to eat this truma once she gets married. It says Rashi, v'shtakach deshir b'kedushin eitzel kohanim. Chutz mirusha seich, that if I die, I'll inherit you. Mahu b'nesuin haloshir. Odilma l'sher v'yarish yisaksiv. It says that it's the husband that's yarish, and you're not my husband anymore. Chutz mikadusha sayich b'shtar mahu. You can be mekadesh with any way you want, but not with a star. Mi amrin and after the mekadesh, well, because of bias, we'll see in about a week, the very beginning of Masechtas Kedushin, that you can be mekadesh a woman not just with a star. You can give kesef, you can have bia, so she really could marry whoever she wants, just with a different ceremony. Says Rashi, okay. Says the next Mishnah. Mastisa. Gufa shall get. So what is the main part of a get? Rashi says, Iker ksav a get, kach yichtabu boi, hariyat muteres l'chol. Makes sense, because we keep mentioning as we continue to pay him and base the beginning of this parak, hariyat muteres l'chol. This is what he says, or maybe it's written down, and then maybe he makes a tenai, almanas chutz. That is the most important thing. You are free to whomever you want, which on a 12-line get, which is Armenic nowadays, typically it's the very last line. Or it's one of the very last. It's the 11th line, 12th line. Rabbi Yehuda Omer v'dein di havilichi minoi sefer teruchin v'ger shvukin v'ger peturin, which is is written that this shall be to you a sefer of tiruchin, which is of removal, a letter of shvukin, of abandonment, get paturin, a document to free you. V'mehayich demin tzava l'chol gavar de tinsibin, and you can marry whichever man you want to. Okay, so it goes a little bit more in detail that says it has to be. This is this document. Gufa shall get shechor when it comes to a emancipation proclamation or a document. Hariyat bas choyrin hariyat atzmech. So here you're saying that you are free. Okay. Says the Gemara Pshita. All of this is obvious. Samalei ishto, regarding a woman, if you say hariyat bas choyrin, if you say you're free, you said nothing. Said why? Because you can't use, when it comes to gerushin, Rashi's lashon of cherus. Bas choyrin he koyin b'chein. A woman is free. She's just an eishes ish. Doesn't mean she's not a slave. So you saying that she's free, bas choyrin, doesn't work. So that's definitely not going to work on a get. If you say to a shivcha, or write down that you're free to whomever, that also means nothing. Why? Says Rashi, it doesn't mention anything about her not working. She's not allowed to now marry whomever she wants. So it has to be for a woman, when it comes to a woman who, to free her, hariyat choyrin, bas choyrin. Fine. Amrul Isha. But let's say instead you use the last line of our Mishnah. Hariat la'atzmich. You are to yourself. Mahu. L'gamri karmela, completely. O malacha karmela. Maybe it just means to work. So can you write for a get hariat la'atzmich? So Amrul Ravina Ravashi Tashma Dinan. Gufa shall get shechor hariat bascharin hariat la'atzmich. It says when it comes to a slave that one of the ways it works is hariat la'atzmich. You are to yourself. Uma avda dekani gufa. When it comes to an eved, where you mamish own the body, ki yarmalei hariat la'atzmich kani gufe. By just saying that they completely are free, so ish the lo kani gufa kol shekain, then certainly should work by a woman. Amalei Rabbeinu Ravashi, amalei la'avdo. So that may very well be the answer. Let's look at question 4b. Kasav le'isha beget. Actually 4a. Hari at la'atzmich. So will that work? Hari la'atzmich migoreshes. Yes. Eved yatzal cheres. So hari la'atzmich works for a eved as well as for a woman. Okay. That was 4a. Armul Ravino Ravashi, Armul Abda Inli Asik Bach or Asik Bacha Mahu. I have nothing to do with you, which is the second part of question 4. Armul Rav Chanin Ravashi, Armul, some say it was Rav Chanin, Michuzna Ravashi. Tashma coming here. The sign we learn like this. A person sells an eved to an avakachavim, which you're not allowed to do, as a kanas yatzal acherus. That eved goes free. The sarach gets shechor marab rishon, and he needs a document to prove this from his first master. So the only time that's the case is if it was not written a ono, which is a specific document that says that he was sold to the avakachavim. Of a kasav of ono, if he wrote this document that he sold him to avakachavim, zeshich ruhu. This is enough. So my ono, so I'm Rabbi Sheshes, the kasav law that you wrote, likashitibarach mimenu, that when you flee from me or you run from the avakachavim, ainli asik bach, I have nothing to do with you. So ainli asik bach clearly 4b is a lashon of cheres. And however, in shayich be'isha, ve'eved yatzal cheres. This has nothing to do with. It doesn't work by giti isha, but it will work when it comes to an eved. Rabbi Huda Omer v'dain v'lahavi lichmi noi sefer teruchim v'ger shmukin. Don't the gufa shall get is not just hariyat materas l'chol adam. You have to also add these other things. So, b'may kimifli, what is exactly this machlokas? Rabbanan Savri, Yadayim she'en mochichos having Yadayim. When you say Hariyat Materas L'chol Adam, that's considered to be, as we see in Masechtas Nedarim, Nazir, Yadayim, like a handle of a cup, Yados, which lifts up the whole cup, she'en mochichos. It's not 100% clarity exactly what you mean. Is that considered to be a dime enough that it works? So when you say Hari Materas L'chol Adam, that's Yadayim She'en Mochichos. Says Rashi, Beis Achiz L'davar L'echayz Bo Yiv'leimer Hochiach She'adei Sefer Zeh Girsha. Through this, it's a divorce. Alpha B'I Havi Beis Yad. It's not really so clear. V'Armin M'Nekasav Get V'Yoiv Gali Daita the Hagitel Girsha. He's giving a divorce. He wants to divorce her. He's saying, I'm divorcing you. So all of this will be enough. So by just saying, writing Hari Materas L'chol Adam is Yadayim She'en Mochichos, but still having Yadayim. We are able to gather up enough information to understand what he's trying to accomplish. And therefore, going to Rabban, you don't need to do more. The Afagav, the Loikas of Vadain, even if you didn't say in this document, obviously he wants to divorce her with this document. The reason why it works is because of Vadain, because you specified, you said this document, then it's clear that you want to divorce her with this. If he didn't write this, maybe he's just trying to divorce her with mere words. And the shtar is just some type of a document, but it's not in order to divorce her with it. So therefore, that would not be enough. So that is the basis of the machlokas. Okay. Rabbi, Haiman de Kasav Gita, a person who wrote a get, Lo Lichtaiv, don't write Vadain, which is with a yud. Vadain is supposed to be without a yud, because with a yud, the mashma Vadin, and it's like the law. El Vadain, write it without the yud. Also, Lo Lichtaiv Igeres, when you write the word Igeres, letter, don't write it with a yud. Damashma igras. It could mean a roof. El igeres, without the yud. Lo lichdav limhach. Don't write to me. You should be, right? Damashma li mehach. So it almost sounds like kedushin, not gerushin. Lo lichdav lemechach. Don't write it with a ches in there. Damashma kichucha. It sounds like a joke. He's making a joke. A chucha. Dies havien, dies boyin. Tlasa yudin. So you'll notice that it actually should have three, if it has three yuds. In the Mishnah it only has two. If you put three, the mashma tihavien betitz boyin. That for you it should be. Okay, so that's not good. Okay, let's stop here for a second. We're in the middle. Look at this Rashi. Zehu typhus aget. Patris yisich lichi an plainis bas plainis. The havi isnichi mikdashes dana uchdu patris shamchis v'terichin yisichi died to havin rasha v'shalta. B'nevshaychu mi'ohachim minsabo l'chol man dietz voyin with three yuds. Be'inish lo yamoy b'yodaychu min yoim adanon oilam v'dein di havi lichim u'noi gate p'turim v'sefer t'chuchim v'ger shvukin kedas Moshe Yisrael. That's how the get ends. Kedas Moshe Yisrael. Okay, so that's a longer version of the get. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Okay, back in the Gemara. When it comes to l'orche, l'vav, with a vav, the teruchin, which is the vav also, l'vav, l'shvukin, which we look at the vav there, the mashma terichin u'shvikin. It could be mashma otherwise as a general letter, not to her specifically. L'orche, l'vav. Again, dichdu with a vav at the end, the mashma uchdi. Otherwise, it could mean with nothing. If there's no vav. V'lo lichdav, and don't write l'itznava with the aleph there. The mashma lo yitznava, lo yisnatzva. Don't marry lehitznatzva with a hey. Iboilhu. Be'inon vadain or dilma vadain. Do you need vadain or lo be'inon vadain? Do you need to have the word vadain in there? Tashma. The askin Rabbi Begiti, he was masakin ich plania bar plania patar. How did this person get freed? Betaretz yas ponisa intase. The havi intete min kadam dana miyoyma dana lo'olam ve'ilu vadain lo'ikamar. So based on this lengthy response, there's one glaring thing that's missing, in the words vadain. So l'chayr maybe vadain is not necessary. Lo'tamich kul mikamar. He didn't mention everything else. He just mentioned a small part. So does that mean nothing else needs to be written down? No, it's not a raya. El be'inan hachanami be'inan. It's not a raya. It does need to be said. Okay. Says Rashi, Min Yoimidin L'Oim Lafukim Rav Yosi. Okay. What does that mean? So this is the last line of the Gemara actually, so let's see it. Min Yoimidinan, from this day on, Lafukim Rav Yosi. The Yomer is Zman Shogem L'Chiach Chalav. Says Rashi, Ein Sarch Lichtem Hayoim Beget, the Shchimira, the Zman Shostam L'Chiach Chalav. When it comes to a Shchimir, or someone who's dying and giving a get, the Zman is enough. V'loi Havi Kiget L'Achar Misa. Therefore, we require everyone to be rugil in this matter. We just don't want any problems, so therefore, that's the reason why I write from this day on. Okay. Weiter. Which she's diversed and separated forever, for eternity, as we continue to pay Baba Aleph. Lafuki midabamine Ravam Rab Nachman, excluding his question, the Yomer Hayoim Iata Ishti L'Machar At Ishti. As we asked in a previous stop, what's the din if he says, I'm divorcing you today, but not tomorrow? So we end up saying that maybe that in itself is good, because at least he did divorce her for that day, and therefore that's it. She's now free. But this is the reason why we say the word L'Olam, to exclude that. Question 5. So why do we write min kadam dinal miyoima, from this day, from before this day, from this day, and why do we write L'Olam? So he says like this. Lafuki Rav Yosim is one Shoshem Achiachalav, and Lafuki with the boy Rava, B'Yomer Hayomi Iata Ishti L'Machar At Ishti. Okay. Gufa shall get Shechor Hariyat Bas Chayrin Ha'Latzmich. So ask Rabbi Yehuda B'Shtar Zvini. So Rabbi Yehuda instituted, when it comes to documents of sale, the Avdi Avda Denan Mutztokul Avdoi Upater V'Ater Min Charuri Min Lule, that I'm putter from any claims, Min Arure, like Min Arure Malka Malchusa, or any complaints from the government, the Roshum the Inish, and as a sign or a symbol for man, Lo Isali, it does not have, Menuka Mikol Mum, it's clean from all blemish, Min Shchin the Nufik, any literally blemishes or boils that comes out, Ad Titz Har Chad Va'atik, for 2 years, new and old. My Asuse. So what is the benefit of, how do we heal these wounds? Actually, let's finish. Rabbi, the way you heal wounds or boils is Ginbara, ginger, Umartacha, or from silver, the Kavrisa, sulfur, the Chalwa, the Chamra, and the vinegar from wine, Umashcha, the Zaysan, oil from olives, the Nat Peak Chivra, the Shaifele Begadfa the Avza. You should smear it with a feather of an aves of a bird. Says Rashi, Umin Uri Malka Malchus Shulchata Liyos Muchtav Malchus, that I'm not Muchtav Malchus Liharik Shim Hay Muchtav Malchus Mekach Batal. A person is being sentenced to death, so he can't sell any of his items. So he's saying that it's not true. I don't have any of these things. There's no Roishim Siman Shaisam Al Avadim. Again, no connection. Basically, he's saying that this is a free and clear loan, if you don't have anything to worry about. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Adkan.